Richard,
Will,
welcome to Waterstones.
thank you very much. I've been to Waterstones before.
It would be worrying if you hadn't, frankly.
Yeah,
But
can you imagine?
It would be a really awkward start to any
I
conversation.
go, yes, lovely. What do you do here? Books.
We do, of course, sell books.
Mm-hmm.
We're here to talk primarily about your book, but
Lovely.
also about all sorts of other things too.
Great.
We have just together done the World Cup of books.
Books on Twitter went very well, right?
It went very well,
Yeah.
but we were just saying off camera, it's quite stressful.
It's
doing
really
the World
stressful.
Cup.
There's much more admin than it appears to be. To get everything out on time and not to misspell anything, to
Yeah.
put things in the right groups and make sure the right ones have gone through, all of that kind of stuff. Sounds like it's not stressful, but yeah it's unbelievably, especially when you've got hundreds and hundreds of people telling you their opinions about what you've just done.
Lots of opinions.
That's right. You did very well, I thought.
Well, people
For
don't
your
know.
first one.
It was my first World Cup. It may well be the last, but one of those, I think it might have been the semi-finals, it was actually sent from a station platform using
I've
my
done that
phone
before.
and a laptop because my trainer got delayed. It was pretty
I know,
touch and go.
and you know you've got to do it because you know you've said that the next bit's coming out at 7 o'clock and people go crazy if it doesn't come out at 7 o'clock.
We are both men of our word.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's exactly right.
The winner eventually was To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yeah, I was quite pleased about that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have said when I asked them whether they had any questions to ask you, is which book you would have voted for in the World Cup.
Well, it's
books.
interesting, isn't it? Because you can see there's a constituency for Lord of the Rings and for Harry Potter and all that kind of stuff, and I understand that. But it feels like probably feels that their popularity is their success in a way. And I thought it was nice that a book that was, written by. Some is a first book, it turns out it was a second book, but a standalone novel about something is so dear to the hearts of people, so that was rather lovely. I think probably, like almost everybody, when it comes down to it, your really favourite books probably weren't in that top 32, because that's those are just the kind of big beasts, and so I would say something like Towards the End of the Morning by Michael Frayn I think it's the funniest book ever written. Strangers on a Train, Patricia Highsmith. Bonfire of the Vanities, maybe Tom Wolfe.
Yeah.
Something like that. It's hard, isn't it, though, if you're asked to do your
it's the nightmare question.
favourite.
What's your favourite book?
Yeah.
It's
But you must do
difficult.
like 21st century novels or something at some point as well, because actually when you get even more specific,
Yes.
the arguments get even worse.
I can imagine. Well, people have asked, would we do another one that focused solely on children's literature? Would we do one that went through all the genres of fiction, for example?
I mean, it never ends, and you're going to give me a little while.
I need a bit of recuperation time.
So
but then
people
I
say,
might
as soon
go.
as you finish World Cup of biscuits, and people say, what's next? You go, next is I'm not going to do this for a while, because it really, really, I quite often do them over bank holidays, and you just think that's the entire bank holiday ruined.
Yes, you do, which is great for having everybody there,
perfect
but
for
does it not
engagements
ruin
and
your...
stuff like that. Well, you know what, I do it for Child's Eye, which is this Ugandan charity that I work with, and if you do it over the bank holiday, you just get an awful lot more engagement, and then they go onto the website and they give their money, and more people bet, and the betting money goes to Child's Eye as well. So that's why I do that.
You've mentioned biscuits. I don't have any biscuits. I do have Jaffa cakes, though.
Well, then you do have biscuits.
Well, so this was the big debate, wasn't it, with the World Cup of biscuits? Are they cakes? Are they biscuits? In your book, you state your case very clearly as to why they are biscuits.
Yeah. Well, I don't even state my case. I quote directly from a court case that an imaginary court case.
The court case in your mind, yes.
And I do at some point. Yeah, I say in the book, I say that people say, well, they're called Jaffa cakes, so they must be cakes. I say Bonnie Tyler is called Tyler, but I wouldn't ask her to regrout my bathroom, But also, there's a thing, and everyone, if ever you mention this on Twitter, people go, no, they had an EU ruling, and they say that a cake goes hard when it's stale, and a biscuit goes soft, so they're a cake. Like I don't know this ruling, like I haven't had the last 3 years of my life that have been quoted to me. But the thing is, if you know what happens when a Jaffa cake goes stale, then I don't trust you to tell me what's a biscuit or not, because a Jaffa cake has never gone stale in my house.
There should be no time for that to happen.
Of course it's not. I mean, it's literally meaningless. The point is moot.
Are you a sort of, I've had one, I might as well eat the whole packet kind of guy, or do you manage to eke it out over
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Of course. Who is, anyone is kind of going, yeah, no, I tell you what, I'll just have one. Actually, you know what, just one is enough. One Jaffa cake is enough for me.
I'll leave it there.
Please don't, no one, there's no such thing as an unopened, as a half-open packet of Jaffa cakes. This is a good literature chat we're having.
Well, we are really keeping it Waterstones focused,
yeah, exactly, we really are.
Your book is called The World Cup of Everything, and in there you have the World Cups we've already mentioned, but also many, many other categories. And the idea is that this is a book, as you say, fully interactive. As long as you've got a pencil, you can do these World Cups at home.
That's the idea, because I do these things on Twitter, and they're loads of fun, and everyone gets involved. But then you get to the end of the World Cup of chocolate, and it turns out it's dairy milk, and then everyone then tweets me and goes, "It's not dairy milk. How dare you?" You think, well, I mean, that's the point of what we've just done. It is dairy milk. So I just thought, well, actually, I put this together so people can do this at home. So they can choose their own World Cup of chocolate, their own World Cup of biscuits, their own World Cup of Americans, their own World Cup of British sitcoms and British bands. And it's designed, there's little wall charts in there that you fit in. It's designed so literally you just sit around a dinner table or sit around a living room at Christmas and drive each other crazy and have just terrible stand-up arguments about, because some of the arguments in the book, especially when you get through to the sort of last four, it's brutal.
It's brutal. And I think when I was reading the book, I was thinking this is going to cause such pain.
Yeah, I think so.
Like Christmas isn't bad enough for many households.
But the thing is, at Christmas you're going to row about something.
Okay.
So listen, it was better to row about Twixes than row about Brexit. I think.
Well,
is it not?
There's certain poetry to choosing between Twix or Brexit there.
Yes, well, I think I say in the book that Brexit would be a very good name for a chocolate bar. I don't know what it would be, but it would have 2 fingers and it would be up to you to know what to do with them.
You have filled the book as well with lots of very interesting facts about the various things.
Yeah, I was fascinated.
Because you've obviously done a lot of research into the various chocolate bars and biscuits.
Well, when I started writing, I did think, well, look, I love the idea of having these arguments, and I want to give my opinions on different chocolate bars and sweets and stuff, because I have opinions. And the second I started looking into them, I thought, well, this is amazing. The history of our chocolate bars, the history of, I do restaurants at one point, so you've got Nando's and Pizza Express and Burger King. And the second you start looking into the history of these things, which are so familiar to us, they're fascinating. The stories are amazing. And so look, I just filled the book full of those, and it's sort of a weird social history of kind of British ephemera, completely accidentally.
Yeah.
But you can skip all of that stuff and just go straight to the voting if you choose. But there's some good stuff in there.
No, it's great. The thing that made me laugh out loud was the thing about Snickers, which is how to trip up somebody who is over 35, which is a bracket that I'm in. So, yeah, if you say what are they originally called, and I remember them, of course, as being a marathon.
Yeah, everyone just said marathon. And
case closed.
You go, no, they were originally called Snickers. That was the original name. So they were named after the horse on Forrest Mars's farm, where Mars was invented. And we renamed them Marathon in the 1970s to pretend they were a health bar, which they are not a health bar.
Definitely
just to reassure everybody. So yeah, they were originally called Snickers. So I say that's a great way to win £10 off anyone who's over 35. Because they always, and I do it when I do big live events of this as well.
Yeah.
And you start to say, okay, what was Snickers originally called? The whole place, Marathon. And then you go, well, every day is a school day.
I'm very glad that I managed to read that chapter before my own children, because otherwise they would have been trying to.
There you go.
I might let them get away with it.
Yeah,
once. You also there's a thing about Pringles. That the inventor of Pringles was so proud of his invention that he was actually his ashes were
buried in a tube of Pringles. Yeah. In the tube. And weirdly, the same is true of the Doritos guy. The guy who came up with Doritos, he had them sprinkled on his grave.
Which is extraordinary.
Yeah, it is extraordinary in a way, but I guess, if you do invent the Pringles tube, and it becomes the most successful sort of packaging in history, I guess you would be proud of it. Quite, and rightly so. But it's fascinating. You find out so many things like that, the history of like products and things. But I always think, like, I even name check. There's all these sort of lost heroes in history. I name check the guy who came up with a Viennetta, and I name check the guy who came up with the machine that puts the stripes on Frazzles. And you think, well, there's someone who's done more for our country than virtually anyone you can mention. But, who's writing about him?
You also mentioned the thing with the milk chocolate digestive, which emerged victorious in the World Cup of biscuits. The chocolate is actually on the bottom of the biscuit.
On the bottom,
Nice. There was a video recently that was shown.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That blew my mind.
It's crazy, right?
To see it happen. You think, how do they do that?
But it's all in there.
The proof
Honestly,
is definitely there.
You will leave this book a wiser person than you join it. I can guarantee that. I mean, listen, you'll have no family left, but
well, it's true that your family will have been spread to the four corners of the earth. But I mean, there is a lot of humour, and as you say, it's a kind of a fun thing. But were there any of these, when you were putting them together, where you have a very strong opinion, quite a vested interest, and it was sort of upsetting to decide.
I don't know, it's interesting.
I
mean, some of the things, listen, you could do a very much more controversial version of this, and I try and shy away from that because I do think that we have a controversial enough world as it is. We're asked to vote on enough stuff that is important. But like, there's the World Cup of Americans in there, so I rerun Donald Trump against Hillary and stuff like that. I do Neil Armstrong versus Michael Jackson, where I say the only thing you have to ask yourself here is who did the best moonwalk. So I do that, and in that, obviously, look, there's Martin Luther King and there's Rosa Parks in there, and you do think, well, look, I would hope in my household they might win over Taylor Swift, but it's people's own business. I talk about in the introduction to that the Americans did do their own, like we did the Great Britain's poll on the BBC, the Americans did theirs, and Ronald Reagan was the greatest American of all time, but also that George Bush, because they did it in 2003, George Bush was higher than the Wright brothers. And one place above Muhammad Ali, who to my mind is one of the greatest people of all time, one place above Muhammad Ali was Lance Armstrong.
Wow. So,
before, obviously this is before the revelations. So, there are some where, you can take a certain worldview on things. And obviously there are certain, if anybody said that Reddy's salted crisps were the best crisps, that's a household I wouldn't go back to.
I want to talk about this because I think that the salted crisp is really the test of any crisp manufacturer. So without any flavouring, how good is your crisp?
No,
and that's what it should taste
all
like.
All crisps are the same. They're just some potato. All crisps are is texture.
Okay.
Don't fool yourself.
Okay.
Right, that's all it is. And everything else is the flavour. And salted crisps, it's like your favourite ice cream being sugar flavoured. It is what it is. That's just what it is.
Okay.
That isn't anything.
If I can't sort of argue with you about that, I'm going to have to raise how highly you personally, because you have a personal ranking of Chris in this book.
Yeah.
You put prawn cocktail at 3, I think, on your list?
Really high. I go through the normal flavours. Yeah, I like a prawn cocktail. I think listen, salt and vinegar is the best. We all know that. Then various of the meat flavours, probably a bacon. I would think. Yeah, I like a prawn cocktail. I like a prawn cocktail in a crisp, and I like it in a skip.
A skip. I feel like a skip is almost like a
when you say I like it
category.
In a skip, that doesn't sound right, does it? I like it in skips.
We've all had nights like that where you've ended up in a skip.
I do like it in a skip. I like prawn cocktail. Well, I go through the top 10 biggest selling crisp flavours, and then next to them I put where they actually should be. Because of course the best selling crisp flavour, Reddy salted. You know? I mean, come on, Britain. That's crazy.
Broken Britain, right?
Yeah, it really is broken Britain, in my opinion. But that's the beauty. It might not be your opinion, so you can buy the book and you can put all these things right. But imagine being in a house where Reddy Salted Walkers won the World Cup of Crisps.
I definitely didn't put it as my winner.
You'd be leaving pretty early on Boxing Day, I think.
You would. Door opened, pushed down.
Yeah, I think so.
Please don't think about coming next year.
I think so.
Kind of thing. And just sort of moving away from this book and sort of more generally, obviously for many years you were working in TV behind the scenes, producing programmes. Then you come up with this idea for Pointless, and you did the pilot, didn't you? You were there to demonstrate how the programme would work.
Which I've done for many years on many quizzes. The producer plays the role of the host to try and sell the show. Yeah, that's what you always do. But then accidentally I actually became the host,
And has this changed your life, or has it changed aspects of it?
Well, I guess, it has really, but it happened when I was 40. So I'd built my business, and I'd done all the things that I wanted to do, is the truth. And also at 40, you've grown into yourself a little bit in terms of your ego and knowing who you are. So it happened at a time where I was sort of thinking, I wonder what the next challenge would be, and someone said, do you want to do this? I thought, that's a fun, ridiculous thing to do. I can tell the grandkids about. I'll do like one series of this, and it has slightly escalated, I'll say that. It became something I didn't think it would be, but as I say, I was old enough that's okay. And also I find it incredibly, I think it's really useful. I find it that I can use it, this sort of thing, and doing these things on Twitter and raising that money. You think, well, what a lovely thing to be able to do. I write at the beginning of the book that when I was a kid I used to do these. I used to write these things out and play them and all that kind of stuff. And to be able to do that on a grand scale and to make people happy in that way, I think is a real privilege. But in terms of the ambitions of it, and in terms of the wanting to be a big star and all that kind of stuff, but fortunately that's not really part of my psyche. I try and do things that I really, really enjoy and that are fun. Really.
You have a good relationship, obviously, with your co-host.
Yes.
You've been working together. I mean, how many years is it now you've been working together on that show?
Yeah, almost 10 years now we've been working together, and I've known him for because we met when we were 18, so I've known him for 28 years.
Well, I was going to say, because you were contemporaries at university.
Yeah, we were, weirdly. And we weren't sort of close friends, but we knew of each other, and I've always followed his career because we both worked in telly on different sides of it. So we bump into each other every now and again and say hi. Yeah. And now, he's virtually my husband. He is your TV husband. Yeah, he really is. Which is, and a very, very gentle and loving husband he is as well.
Well, that's very good to hear.
I'm a very lucky man. You could have worse.
Are there any sort of World Cups that you wanted to put in this book and you didn't because you feared they might be too controversial? Or were you
it's hard, really. It's weird. I don't want to get all technical and nerdy about it, but it's actually quite hard to do World Cups because you need, people don't say, oh, do a World Cup of this or that. You need quite a limited pool of things, is the truth. And that's why with books, we had to open up the big nomination process just so the people chose their 32, and then you can go, look, you chose it. Yeah. But we were talking before off air. If you were to do 21st century novels or something like that, there probably would be 32 that are really kind of something like that. And with crisp, with chocolate, weirdly, there are sort of that amount. And with sitcoms and with bands as well. Actually, once you get beyond 30 odd, you're starting to go, oh no, this isn't. There's some people's favourites, but there's not going to get a load of votes. So the things sort of choose themselves in a funny kind of a way. And it's nice to get, there's a broad sweep in there. But in terms of doing it for books, you can imagine all sorts of different sub-genres, is the truth. So I've done British bands in there, but you could do American bands, you could do 21st century bands, you could do solo singers, you could, all that kind of stuff. And with books, you could do children's books, you could do 21st century books, you could do 19th century novels, like I've ever read any of those. Isn't that terrible? There's so many things on that list of World Cup of books I hadn't read. Yeah. Because I've never read any classic literature.
Well, you weren't alone, because I think a lot of people looked at this and they went, the one thing this has taught me is that I have not read enough of these books, and maybe I should go away and of course you should go away and do that. Yeah.
But it's true, but I especially think with a couple of the books, that like Catcher in the Rye, To Kill a Mockingbird, stuff like that, that are sort of, they're kind of, why wouldn't you read them? I can see why you wouldn't read Great Expectations, because it's written in language you might find alienating, and it's really long. Yeah. And those are two things that are not for me. But To Kill a Mockingbird, if there's something like The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie or something like that, if someone tells you, just so you know, that's a book I would vote for, and you look at it and go, well, that's quite short. And that you can't read The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie and not go, hold on, what else is around from that era? Yeah. And what other writers are there? And has she written other stuff? And who else is writing like her? Yeah. And that's the wormhole you want to go down. Like on the YouTube, when you click on some band from the 80s and suddenly you're looking at 20 of them. Yeah. You have entry-level drugs. And To Kill a Mockingbird is actually, weirdly, To Kill a Mockingbird is not a great entry-level drug, because where do you go from To Kill a Mockingbird? If you know what I mean. It stood fairly alone. Whereas there are certain authors, and I would say Muriel Spark is a very good example of it, where actually suddenly you can be, it's like a kid when they discover sci-fi for the first time. Yeah. And you suddenly go, well, I like this, but oh, right, hold on a minute, and this, and see, there's a whole world of it. Yeah. And it's the same with literature, and we're not sort of thrown in that direction very often, I don't think.
No, I suppose the thing is, where the recommendations you might get from an algorithm won't necessarily be terribly well related. Whereas I say, if you find a book that you find, love, and want to read more around, actually speaking to booksellers or other readers can often help you to find.
Well, that's it. My favourite bit in all Waterstones is always the staff recommends. Yes. Where you just see the thing, because you just think, well, look, someone loves it. Yeah. Someone cares about it, and they're just saying to you, look, this means something to me. It might not to you, and that's fine, but just so you know, this is something that I found very important. And as soon as I bought from here, in fact, actually not from here, from Waterstones in Chiswick. Hey, Waterstones Chiswick. Lionel Davison, the guy is a sort of 60s, 50s maybe thriller writer, and they reissued some of his books. And so I was reading them, and they're brilliant. And you think, well, hold on, his were brilliant. That means all these other kind of slightly forgotten 50s, 60s, 70s thriller writers, they're also writing amazing books. And, then you're reading Eric Ambler, and you're reading, and you just go, and it just opens these things up for you. And, I love that when one simple little, because I saw that off a staff pick, it just said, I'll have a little look at this book, because it's, and I read that, and suddenly, I'm reading 10 books down from someone completely different. Yeah.
If you were a bookseller for a day, what would be the one book that you might write your little card about?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, I would. The book I talk about a lot is Towards the End of the Morning, which is Michael Frayn, and comic wouldn't really say it's a comic novel because I think he's slightly more than a comic novelist, Michael Frayn. But that's a book, and he always says, I think it was unsuccessful because no one could ever remember the title.
Right.
And it's you know, I've said towards the end of the morning, 10 minutes later you would have forgotten that title. But it's about the very end days of Fleet Street and the very early days of television, and just about a couple of characters in there. And it's so brilliantly written and so brilliantly evocative of that era, and the comic set pieces are so good. That's a book I can't imagine anybody not enjoying, and it is quite short.
Top tip.
Yeah.
Well, imagine the postcard with your name written on the bottom saying that you should read this. We will leave things there because we have some Jaffa cakes to eat.
Amazing.
But I had so much fun with this. I can't wait to ruin my family relationships this Christmas with it.
It's my pleasure.
But it's sort of funny and informative, but it does the World Cup thing that you would expect. So.
Well, I think so. You know what? I am really. It seems silly. I'm incredibly proud of it. Honestly, there's so much stuff in there that I love, and I love the thought behind it. And so I'm very, very chuffed with it. And
are there any World Cups coming up in the future after obviously we've got through Christmas?
I think for this Christmas, I mean, I try and do a few a year anyway for Child's Eye, and I think for this Christmas, because the book is coming out as well. Last Christmas we did the World Cup of Christmas films, which is brilliant and really Christmassy. You know, it was really nice and it really was Christmassy. So this year we're going to do World Cup of Christmas songs. What's the best Christmas song ever?
Great.
You know, pop songs, carols, Frosty the Snowman, all of it. Let's
I'm
find
trying to think now what my money would be on. I daren't even guess the British
Tale of New York.
You think? I think that's a rank outsider.
Do you think?
Yeah.
Fairy Tale of New York.
I think.
You know what I think the final will be? Fairy Tale of New York versus Last Christmas.
You heard it here
first.
That's
my honest opinion.
Last Christmas.
I could be wrong. The films one was Elf versus Home Alone, which I called.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you not think? Do they know it's Christmas? Is that going to be in there? No. Okay.
I mean, it'll be in the 32.
Yeah, but
I just don't think. I haven't done these a few times now. Maybe.
Well.
Sometimes you're surprised. I never thought Crunchy would get through the semi-finals of the World Cup of Chocolate.
Oh, I love a Crunchy.
Yeah. There you go.
It's the one that you forget about, and then you have one and you go, oh, that's good.
You see.
Maybe it's as you say, it's very, very sugary, and it does get stuck in your teeth.
Looking forward to Christmas already, right?
I am there with bells on. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's fun.